So, hello everyone, and welcome to the PBA's Alternative Dispute Resolution Committee's lunchtime learning program on how to become a neutral. So my name is Adam Martin. I'm an associate at Trotman Pepper in Harrisburg. I'm in the business litigation group. I'm also the ADR committee YLD liaison. And I'm also tangentially related. I'm the host of the ABA section on dispute dispute resolution podcast. And we talk on the podcast, we talk about a lot of similar issues. So if you're interested in how to become a neutral, I recommend you check us out. But today I'm thrilled to moderate a panel of fantastic mediators and arbitrators who are going to talk to you a little bit about their career paths and how they came to be neutrals. Today we'll be hearing from the Honorable Emil Giordano, who's currently retired from the bench, Mary Kate Coleman, Sunu Pillai, and Selena Schultz. And just at the outset, we could probably fill a whole hour with their career paths and their stories and how they became neutrals, but we're going to condense it down because we only have an hour. So we're going to get a brief overview on how they all came to be in their current positions within the ADR community. So I'm going to let them each introduce themselves more fully, but first just a couple of housekeeping matters. So everyone, I think you should be muted automatically, but if you're not, please just check and make sure your audio is muted. I love hearing everyone's dogs in the background because I love dogs, but it can get a little distracting sometimes, so we appreciate everyone muting their mic if they're not speaking. And if you have questions, please use the chat function. I'm going to try to read the questions as we go, but if I don't want to stop the conversation for something off topic. So please just chat to the side. I'll try and get to questions when we have an opportunity. So finally, just a notice to everyone that the program is being recorded. So if you have any issues with that, I think you're going to have to log off because we are recording the program and we'll be publishing it at a later date. So without further ado, one more note that I missed. We're also going to be doing a poll of the audience just to try and get a sense of who's participating. I think should get a pop-up right about now. It's just asking you kind of what point in your career you are so we can get a sense of who is attending and who to gear future programs towards. So I just submitted my own poll response. But now we're going to get to the people you're actually here to hear from. So I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves a little more fully and give you kind of an overview of their background and how they got started in ADR. So if you don't mind, Judge Giordano, would you mind starting us off?
Oh no, absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. I think I'm the only panelist from Northeast Pennsylvania here, and I'm glad to be part of this program. I served as a court common pleas judge in Northampton County for 15 years. After I graduated from Villanova Law School, I was an assistant DA, assistant public defender. Then I did insurance defense work. I became a small town practitioner, doing mostly criminal defense work and personal injury work when I first started. And that practice evolved into a municipal practice and construction litigation. I was fortunate enough to be elected in 2003, and I served 16 years in Northampton County as a general trial judge, as well as a judge of the Orphans Court. I was in politics for a long time. I ran unsuccessfly twice for a statewide office. I'm not going to give the voters a third opportunity to reject me, if you're wondering. And I've been a full-time mediator for the last 2 years.
So I'm just going to go clockwise on my screen. Sunu, would you mind going next? No, I think you're muted.
Yep. Adam, I took your advice, so sorry about that. Good afternoon. My name is Sunu Pillai. I practice in the area of construction and arbitration at the Pittsburgh office of Soliving. I'm an arbitrator with the American Arbitration Association. I'm on their construction panel. I'm a fellow with the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. And previously, I was a member of the ABA Dispute Resolution Section Council as the Young Lawyers Division liaison. So, I've worked for about 13 years as an engineer, project manager, and an expert witness consultant before going to law school. And all of it was in shipbuilding, offshore oil and gas, and construction. So that's my background. And one of the major reasons I went to law school was to become an arbitrator. But I went to Pitt. They did not have any ADR classes at that time, any arbitration classes. But I did become a mediator with the Western District of Pennsylvania, with the Federal District Court while in law school. I also took a summer program in international dispute resolution while in law school with the Bucerius Law School in Hamburg. And I practice in construction law, and construction is very ADR heavy. Most standard contracts require a mediation followed by an arbitration. So I've been acting as counsel in arbitration for the last 6 years. And last year I became an arbitrator. So.
Great. Continuing to go clockwise, I think, Selena, you're up next.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me. And thank you, Mary Kate, for organizing this today. I am the executive director of the Conflict Lab in Pittsburgh, and I do all kinds of conflict consulting work now and mediation work, mainly in family and bankruptcy and employment cases. And then I do a lot of facilitation, and then I also teach. I started out I graduated in 1993 and started out as a family law lawyer. And what really frustrated me about practicing law is it didn't seem very focused on problem solving, and it also seemed to escalate conflict. And so there was an opportunity to get trained as a mediator for the Generations program here in Pittsburgh for the Court of Common Pleas. And I did that in 1997. And that from there on, I just decided I want to be a mediator. So I slowly built a practice and have been full-time mediating for about 20 years. And then I went back, got my LLM at Pepperdine, and my practice expanded from family law from there. So, but it is just, has been a wonderful practice, and I'm very, very grateful for this work.
And last but not least, Mary Kate, would you care to share?
Thanks, Adam. So I'm an attorney, mediator, and arbitrator with the law firm of Riley, Hewitt, Wood & Romano in Pittsburgh. And I graduated from law school in 1982. After a clerkship, I became a civil litigation attorney, mostly on the defense side, with an emphasis on doing asbestos litigation, products liability litigation, and insurance defense work, in addition to other civil law matters. About 20 years ago, I got admitted to the practice of law in West Virginia and needed a bunch of CLE credits quickly. And I just happened to see that the West Virginia State Bar was offering basic mediation and advanced mediation training for with CLE for free. So I had done mediation I'd been an advocate in mediation and thought it seemed like an interesting thing to do. So I went ahead and signed up and really enjoyed the training and thought it would be something I would like to do. And at that time, the West Virginia State Bar was, the West Virginia State and Federal Courts, they actually had settlement week with mediation twice a year. And if you've gone through the training, then you could volunteer to mediate cases for the federal and state court system. So I did that, really enjoyed it, and got some great experience. With no time at all, I was mediating 4 to 6-figure cases. So that was really great. I found that it was a great way to help people, and I found it to be professionally satisfying. So mediation has become more of my practice over the years. And I also do work as an arbitrator. one of the best pieces of advice that I got as a young lawyer was to sign up and be an arbitrator in the compulsory arbitration division of the Court of Common Pleas. So I got a good experience there. Saw how to try cases, how not to try cases. So serving as an arbitrator is something that I've also done over the years and have continued to do for panels as well. So, I think I saw the survey results come in somewhere.
I will briefly share the survey results. So it's interesting, the majority of our attendees are on kind of the two ends of the spectrum. About a quarter of the attendees are law students, so welcome law students. And then about 55% have been practicing for over 11 years. And then we have about 10% each from 1 to 5 years of practice and from 6 to 10. So it's very helpful for showing us who is interested in this and who we're talking to. And I think one of the interesting things about becoming a neutral is it's always an ongoing process. You can start out from law school and take classes in ADR and then work, as panels are going to discuss, work towards it throughout your entire career. So the second question for our panelists is geared mostly towards Judge Giordano and Selena. But of course, if anyone else wants to discuss or has a response, please feel free to. So in Pennsylvania, there isn't really a formal mediation process. I know some states you have to be certified as a mediator by some sort of governing body, but Pennsylvania doesn't really have that. So more or less anyone can just hang up their own shingle and say, here's the mediation office of, Joe. So because anyone can kind of do this and start out as a mediator or an arbitrator in their own practice, what type of formal training do you think is necessary for someone to do that? And do you believe that such training is necessary or appropriate for someone before they start out their own practice?
Your Honor, would you like to start?
Selena, you please, let me defer to you.
Okay. Well, I think it's so important for those of you who have taken a mediation training already. It's such a different skill than being an advocate and being even representing somebody in a mediation. So I think it's really important to get some good training. And I have to say, I took a basic mediation course, and then when I went back to get my LLM, I actually took another training from Pepperdine, and then I got another basic mediation. So I think I took 3 basic mediation courses, and they were all at different times in my course of my career. And every time I learned something. And now I teach mediation, and every time I teach mediation, I learn something from the students. So I think it's just an ongoing piece. I did go back and get my master's in dispute resolution at Pepperdine. I think that was incredibly valuable because it was a deeper dive. 40 hours is a great place to start, but you're going to find as you do this work, you want to keep getting more skills in your toolbox and develop your own style. But there's a lot of very informal trainings out there as well. And I know Judge Giordano has done a lot of those trainings. So maybe we can hear from him a little bit about those.
Thank you, Selena. Even though I spent 15 years on the bench and I really prided myself on my ability to resolve cases, I didn't realize that being a mediator would be so much different. No one's afraid of you when you're not wearing black anymore, and you have to rely on your skills. I attended Harvard and I went to the advanced mediation course, which was money well spent. But I also took the strategic negotiation skills program through Pepperdine, which I highly recommend. I went to the national program, and based on that, I'm probably going to take some more classes down there. I also did training with the National Association of Distinguished Neutrals, the American College of Civil Trial Mediators, American Arbitration Association. the skills, and I don't want to just repeat what Ms. Schultz said, but being a lawyer and being a mediator is night and day. I mean, the best thing that prepared me for being a mediator was working in my parents' restaurant when I was growing up. Just being able to deal with people on a daily basis, and politics helped me a lot also. Just be able to engage with people. Being a lawyer, being an advocate doesn't really help you in being a mediator. It's a state of mind. And I really think most people, you need some training before you make that jump.
So, Sunu and Mary Kate, do you have anything you'd like to add about training or experiences?
I will just add that, if you become a AAA arbitrator, AAA does a 3-day training, which is, very good. I also did my fellowship with the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. And, for them, it depends on your experience level. But if you are, less than 10 years experience, you have to go through a MCIR program, which is like a 2-day training, I believe. And for the fellowship, you need to go through like a 4-day training followed by an exam where you actually need to write an award and somebody will evaluate that. So, those are the couple of trainings I've gone through. I also received a fellowship from AAA called Higginbotham Fellowship. And that essentially involves 2 one-week trainings. 1 year in domestic arbitration, a 1-week training, and the 2nd year in international arbitration. So those are essentially the different trainings I have done outside of law school. Yeah.
So I guess I'm up next. So after I did the West Virginia training, I came back to Pittsburgh. I was sort of discouraged to find out that there wasn't a lot of mediation going on in Pittsburgh because I asked people. But what became clear was that it was going to come into existence in Pennsylvania in our federal court program. And at that time, it was sort of like the thought that it's really good to have a 40-hour certificate in mediation. So I also went to Harvard and did the Harvard Basic Mediation Workshop and got my certificate there. I think one thing you wanted to look for if you're looking for training is a course that covers, in addition to like the theory, you want to look for, make sure that ethics are being covered in mediation. There are ethical rules. And you also, I would recommend looking at a course that offers you the opportunity to role play. Because there's nothing like actually, jumping in and getting your feet wet, in a role play as a mediator. You learn a lot that way. So actually, I enjoyed the Harvard program so much that I went back the next year and actually took their negotiation workshop because I thought that tied in and it would help me out a bit. I like what Selena said about taking different courses because you learn different things. Like I took the mediation training course for our local community mediation center, and they taught us in the transformative model, which is a little bit different from, actually it's a lot different from what you see in more court annex programs where you caucus and go back and forth. Transformative is more like people are having conversations with each other and they're in the same room talking and you're supporting them and they have a constructive conversation. So, but as a result of taking all these different courses, you sort of develop your own style. You sort of take what you like from each different course and instruction, and you sort of develop your own style that way. As far as arbitration goes, some entities some arbitration entities, providers have courses or trainings they want to take. Others that are smaller, they'll just accept somebody else's training, and they also look for experience. So that's what I'd add on the arbitration side.
I would just jump in and add on too. If you're looking to be on the federal court panel, you have to go to a training that has at least 16 hours of role plays. So it's important. The training that we teach at the lab here, that's like it's created with those 16 hours of role play. So just make sure if you're wanting to get on the federal panel that you check that out before you pay money to take a course, that it does have the 16 hours and will be approved.
And another thing I would add is, though it is not strictly a training, one thing that has helped me a lot in terms of training is asking arbitrators whether you can shadow them and kind of sit in on their arbitrations. That is immensely helpful. And that you can do the same thing with mediators. And sometimes you could co-mediate cases with mediators if they allow that. But taking those opportunities to really see how things actually work, at least in terms of shadowing or co-mediating, those are great experiences once you take the basic training and once you are in the door, sort of.
So I have a brief follow-up. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and it's sort of tough, given the time in the pandemic. It's I'm not sure if currently there are any in-person trainings being offered. There may be, but and while I can't vouch for any courses, I have seen some online courses being offered in mediation. I think you just have to look for it. Selena, I know you're doing a online training for at least for the landlord-tenant program. I don't know if you're doing a general one right now.
Yeah, unfortunately we have to do our fall one online, but we had done that for the landlord-tenant, had done it online, and it does. That's how I teach online for Pepperdine for their mediation program. So it does work. It's better to be in person, just like a mediation. But yes, we're doing our fall training online this year.
I've taken several programs during the pandemic offered by the International Institute for Conflict Prevention and Resolution, CPR, and those programs have been quite good. I would very low cost. You have to join the organization, but it was well worth sitting in on those training sessions also. I mean, I thought they were well worth the time investment.
CPR is really good.
And I mean, this isn't a 40-hour course or a formal training, but I did check out the Maryland Conflict Resolution Office website. And if you are, I guess, already a mediator, but need to figure out how to do online mediations, they do have some helpful videos on actually how to navigate online. So that was helpful. It wasn't the 40-hour training, but it was once you've done that, how do you translate this to online? So I thought that was helpful.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's a lot of great information about how training and I guess experiential learning in some ways contributes to becoming a neutral. So I think the next question is geared towards more of our the 25% of our attendees who are law students, as well as some of the younger attorneys. So how would you advise either law students or new attorneys, or even someone who's later in their career that wants to make a shift to being a neutral? What advice would you give to them, and how would you recommend that they shift gears or direct themselves towards becoming a neutral?
I'll take a shot at it first. Let me say this to the law students. More than anything, you're going to be hired by fellow lawyers. So the way you comport and conduct yourself with your peers is really important. No one's going to want you to mediate cases if you're disagreeable, if you're belligerent, if you're boisterous. You need to have the right attitude when you're dealing with other people. And that's a real thing, real trait or real skill you need to develop. I didn't have all these bad jokes when I was 30. I developed them when I was 60, and this ability to talk to people, it comes with time, but you want to be likable. And I don't know if you can, I think that can be trained. I know I wasn't very likable when I was younger, but those are the skills that you really need to develop if you want to be a mediator, because the people who are going to hire you are going to want to work with you. So when you have someone on the other side of a case, you need to treat them with civility. You need to treat them with respect. I'm not saying be a pushover, because no one wants that either. But picture yourself in a position later on that they'd want to hire you to do something for them. So you want to do a good, competent job. That's to the law students. To the lawyers that have been practicing a while, you need to volunteer with some training programs. You need to follow people around that are doing this type of work. You need to ask questions. You need to do some training. That's about all I have at this time.
I'll jump in. I think the thing is, so been doing this training in the fall and the spring every year for 10 years. And I'm always so sad when people take the time to do the training and they're so gung-ho and then they don't do. I see them like out and about in Pittsburgh or someplace, you know, a couple years later and ask them if they're mediating and they say no. And you have to be intentional. If you want to make this a practice, you have to hustle. You know, you have to join professional organizations for mediators. You have to shadow, you have to find opportunities. You have to set aside some time to devote to developing the practice. You have to let people know that you've had a training. So the people that I've seen done a really good job have gotten very intentional about it. They don't just take the course and then expect cases to roll in the door. They really, you know, get involved and, you know, have their ear to the ground. They volunteer, they talk, they write. And so that would be, it's definitely, the work is out there, but you have to make it known and you have to put the time in to get the cases. So that would be my advice.
One thing I would say is, you know, depending on what area of neutral practice you're aiming at, the experience required may be different. So for mediation, there may not be that much of an experience requirement, but to become an arbitrator in most areas, you need around 10 years plus experience. So that's, you know, there is a variation depending on, you know, whether you want to become a mediator or arbitrator. For law students, you know, like what I did when I was a law student was talk to attorneys who are practicing in the area, volunteering to co-author articles with them. If they're, you know, doing something, you know, ask them, hey, can I co-author something with you? Or, you know, can I just, you know, do some research? So that will help you develop those relationships. Apply for fellowships. There are fellowships with the American Arbitration Association, the American Bar Association Dispute Resolution Section. They started a fellowship this year. Actually, we restarted it this year. And those fellowships are not just for people who are young, like, you know, in their practice. It is for anybody who is trying to get into the ADR section. So I was in the fellowship selection committee this year for the ABA DR section, and we had applicants, you know, from, you know, right out of law school to people who were in their 50s, because, you know, they had 20 years, 30 years as a litigator, and they're trying to get into ADR. So there are opportunities, no matter where you are in your career. There would be fellowship opportunities that you could apply to, and that will provide a good opportunity for training as well as networking. But, you know, really networking is the key. Getting, you know, as the judge said, you know, attorneys are going to be hiring you. So getting known within the bar as to, hey, you know, as somebody who is likable or who is knowledgeable about that area of practice, that's really the key.
And I'll jump in here. So I think practical experience working at a law firm was very important and very helpful for me. As a lawyer, I served as an advocate in many different types of arbitrations and in mediation to a lesser extent. But I saw the good and bad neutrals at work, and I gained familiarity with the processes. I also gained subject matter knowledge, which is sometimes helpful in mediation. I also served over the years. I also served as neutrals in a neutral in different court programs. I've already mentioned compulsory arbitration. That's a good one to get involved with. We now locally in Allegheny County have a landlord-tenant program, which is part of the compulsory arbitration division. And I know some of the younger lawyers get involved there, but that's great experience for them. It's good experience for me. One of the other things that I did was I volunteered with the Bar Association Fee Determination Committee, where a lawyer in client are having a dispute over the fee. So that was also a very good experience for me. All these things that, anytime you can get practical experience, take it, it's good. It builds confidence, and it's an investment in your future. Sometimes you can be paid for these things, sometimes you don't, but again, it's an investment in the future. So one thing I found is that all these experiences really sort of build on each other. Sometimes experience translates. So for example, one of the things that I've done with the Community Mediation Center is be a facilitator in victim offender dialogue, which it's definitely not mediation, it's a different process, but you're using a lot of the same skills that you use in mediation. So I thought that was really good. And one of the first things I got hired for when I started out years ago was, and I can't remember all the details, to be honest, because it was so long ago, but I was hired to actually help build and conduct an employee, like a stage of an employee, like disciplinary process. And so I had a conversation with the person who contacted me over phone, and they sent me their materials. I thought, yeah, I can do this. So I designed this process, which looked a little bit like arbitration. But again, you're setting up the processes, you're impartial. And so while it wasn't exactly, arbitration or mediation, it was like an ADR type of thing. And I was using those skills. So keep your eyes open for opportunities, I guess is what I would say. Just trying to think what else. As for young lawyers, people may not be willing to hire you as a mediator, right? In your first several years of practice. But there's things that you can do, if you're at a law firm, if there's a partner who's being an advocate in an arbitration, then you can ask to go with them and observe, or you can ask to write the brief, or you can ask to write the mediation brief. You can get some experience that way. So there's different ways that you can sort of build up on this, and everything builds.
So I'll just put in my own kind of tips and what's worked for me. So I think, especially now and in the last few years, it's kind of a golden age for law school classes in ADR. I think talking with a lot of the panelists, it was rare just a few years ago to have a number of ADR courses in law school. And I think I took 6 or something. So there's just a wealth of different ADR courses available now. And I took everything from international arbitration, domestic arbitration, mediation, negotiation. I took everything to see what I was interested in. And I would recommend, if you're interested in ADR generally, for law students to do the same and take advantage of those courses. And also another thing, I think Selena maybe mentioned this, is to volunteer with local mediation organizations. And that's something that's worked for me. I volunteered as a mediator for a local nonprofit mediation organization, and I was able to mediate a number of cases, starting off from neighbor to neighbor disputes, but it helped a lot with those intangible skills and learning how to facilitate communication. And I thought that was a very valuable experience for me. And then the last point I'll make is maybe a word of caution that I've heard a lot is that especially young law students and young attorneys will join a lot of things and then just be on the listserv. And what's really worked for me is joining an organization and then reaching out and actively contributing. That's how I got involved with a lot of the ABA initiatives, is just volunteering and saying, yeah, if someone needs help with something, I'd be more than happy to work on that. And that's been a great way to network and meet new people and also develop a lot of skills and knowledge in ADR. So that's my spiel for my own contribution.
I want to throw something else out there. Post-COVID, a lot of cities are having problems with landlords and tenants, and they're setting up mediation programs. You should check where you live that perhaps these programs are looking for mediators right now, and you could volunteer your time and get some experience doing that. I'm just trying to think if there's any other opportunities like that to just have to do it free for a while till you get some experience to build up a client base.
And one thing I would add to what Adam said is definitely the most bang for the buck that you can get from any bar association is if you join a committee, because you get to work with a group of people in an area that you are interested in very closely. And that's where you develop the relationships, and that's where you develop the connections. So I would completely second Adam, in saying, hey, volunteer for something that you're interested in, join a committee, work on that one. That'll help. The other thing I would say is because of COVID, especially if you're interested in international arbitration sector, a lot of these programs by all kinds of arbitration associations are right now free and over the Zoom. So, I attended programs from Singapore, from Middle East, from London, which I would never attend before, the COVID situation, because right now everything is on Zoom, everything is free. So if you want to sample something, this is probably the right time to do it.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Adam for talking about the classes you took in law school. I think I heard you say you took 6 ADR courses. Is that right? I think that's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. I think when I was in law school, I didn't even know if there were any ADR courses. So that's a nice trend to see, because the statistics we're seeing with the courts are that like 98% of the cases settle. So. It's there's a lot of litigation courses, but very few ADR. So it's encouraging to hear that there are that many at your law school, Adam. Just bringing that up.
So far we've been talking a lot about how to become a neutral. And I think the next question is geared a little bit more towards once you've made that initial step of starting to mediate cases, and maybe starting to be known as a neutral. So when you have that burgeoning practice, how do you network and develop it, and to establish that paying client base as opposed to consistent?
Sure. I'm sorry, and I think Sunu and I agreed that I sort of jump in here first. I'm a big fan of writing because I like to write. And what I've discovered over the years is that people actually read what I write, which sort of surprised me. I went through years without reading bar journals. But I've written articles on ADR topics and case law for our local lawyers journal, the PBA magazine, and for the National Magazine of the Inns of Court. And while I can't say anybody has hired me because they read my article, what I can say is that people know that I do ADR work. And they will actually come up and talk to me about the article that I've written. It's feedback is always positive. Thanks for writing the article. It was enlightening. They have a case like this, that type of thing. But I found the art over the years, the articles have led to other things. So like the very first article I wrote, it led to an offer to join the local mediation group, the Mediation Council, Western Pennsylvania, on the board of directors. It led to an invitation to help coach basic mediation training, and it led to speaking engagements. All of these things, they get you out there, and people know what you do, and if somebody asks them who does this, and your name is in their mind. I found that that's been very helpful. I've heard over the years that people have contacted me to see if they can use my article in an ADR class that they've taught, or in a CLE class that they're teaching, or if they can send it to their boss, that type of thing. So again, it just gets you out there. And what I've discovered more importantly, perhaps, is that it gives you an opportunity to have a conversation with somebody else about what type of work they do and what type of work you do, and perhaps how you can help them in the future. So that's very helpful. as far as publishing goes, a lot of publications are looking for content. So what I've learned is that if you can find an interesting topic or an interesting angle or an interesting case, chances are that somebody else will find it to be interesting, and that it'll actually make its way into print. And I guess I'm actually the chair of the PBA ADR committee this year, and I think our newsletter chair would probably have my hide if I didn't actually tell you that the PBA ADR newsletter is always looking for content. So just wanted to make that brief commercial announcement. But also don't forget to market in-house with your colleagues. So after I published my first article, one of the lawyers here at my firm asked me to do a little lunch and learn for the other firm lawyers, letting them know what my experience is, my education is, because that's marketing in and of itself. And then those people tell their friends, that, they know somebody who does this type of work. So finally, just ending on sort of a funny story I was telling the other panelists when we were preparing today. So I was going out and doing all this marketing. And then a few years ago, our firm actually redid its website. And one of the lawyers asked me to write a section saying that we have a practice area of ADR. And I thought, wow, that's so simple. Why didn't I think of that? But I went ahead and did it. So now we have that on our website. So anyway, Sunu, I'll turn this over to you.
No, yeah, sure. So yeah, I second everything Mary Kate said. It's the key is to let people know what you're doing, right? So as long as people know that you are doing, you are practicing in this area, they may come to you at some point. And for what that involves varies from person to person and where you are in your career. So if you are an associate, less than 10 years experience or a junior partner, you want to, the easiest place you can write on a new topic would be your firm blogs. So, write out, they're always looking for, for articles. You can always write, put an article out there. And, as you put more articles in, like, you have 3 or 4 articles on arbitration, for example, a partner is looking for an associate to staff an arbitration project, you're likely to get called. So you develop, it opens a door for you, because at that stage in the career, your client is really the partner who has that arbitration case that you'll be able to work on. Like in my area of practice in construction, my clients would be attorneys who practice in the area of construction. So I am active in the ABA Construction Forum, which is the committee of construction lawyers. I'm active in the Allegheny County Construction Committee. I'm active in the ADR committee I'm a co-chair for the Allegheny County Bar Association's ADR committee. So, choose the areas where you want to get involved in terms of bar associations and also committees. And, there are many, PBA ADR committee, for example, the ABA section of litigations ADR committee, they're always looking for articles. ABA Construction Forum, if you're in construction, they have a Division 1, which is ADR. They're always looking for articles. So if you find a good case, write a short article about it. There are multiple people looking for that. So that will get you known as somebody who practice in that area. And once you get some articles out, you will get speaking opportunities. So, speaking is another great way to do that, to get, put yourself out there as an expert in a particular area. And, getting involved in bar associations is really the third, and getting involved in committees and, getting to know people who work in this area. So.
I served 15 years, and I expected the day that I came off the bench that my phone would be ringing off the hook with mediations. And what I didn't realize is that doesn't really necessarily transfer. What I did was I joined the National Association of Distinguished Neutrals, American College of Civil Trial Mediators. When I went on the bench, LinkedIn wasn't a thing. Facebook wasn't a thing. And I came off, and I immediately set up a profile on LinkedIn, and I'm constantly putting stuff out on LinkedIn. I have a Facebook page. I'm constantly putting things on that. I'm volunteering for programs like today, and I'm writing. It is a full-time push to get clients. It's not, and I probably had an advantage. Most of you don't, having sat on a bench for 15 years and having a lot of connections through political races. It is a full-time push. It's not easier than being a lawyer. It's in a lot of ways, it's harder because you have to get two lawyers and their clients to agree to you, as opposed to someone just walking in your door. So when I talk about being civil to people and being likable and agreeable, those are all important attributes to have, but you also have to full-time push this if this is the business you want to go into.
So I guess one kind of corollary question to that, or Selena, did you have anything else? I saw you unmuted.
No, you can go ahead. I want us to be able to hit questions that people have.
Sure. So I actually have a quick question that's kind of a corollary to this is, do you have any advice on specifically with, how things have changed due to COVID? How has that changed your networking strategy? And what's something that, if you had a takeaway on that, what would it be?
I think to promote that you can do online mediation and that it's secure and it works just as well, and that you have the skills to do it. Because I think a lot of people right now, I saw in the chat, somebody had a question about private versus court. Some of the courts, it's harder to get in. You can do private mediation in all kinds of areas. There's also a lot of opportunities. I've had a lot of COVID related cases. So there's some opportunities. One of the first cases I had during COVID was two sisters fighting about whether or not their mom should stay in the nursing home or not. So there's COVID related issues that you can mediate, especially in the family arena. Divorce rates are up. There's lots of unfortunate things, business related to COVID.
Adam, one thing I would say on networking in the COVID era is what I have found is it's easy to network. It's actually better to meet somebody on Zoom if you know that person previously, but to develop those new connections, I found it really harder by just talking to them on Zoom. On the other hand, for talking to somebody who you already know, like all my committee meetings in bar associations, it used to be phone calls, but right now everybody's meeting on Zoom. So I'm meeting all those people once a month now, face to face, which didn't used to be the case. So I almost feel like networking with the people I know had been better, but I haven't been making any new connections, unfortunately.
Seems to me that the bar associations have been really good about trying to keep us engaged. So it seems to me there's a lot more opportunities. They have the quarantine cooking and book groups and things like that. And I did trivia one night. So, I always try to sign up for those when I can, because it's on Zoom and you get to meet new people. So make connections that way.
So I think the next thing that I want to ask everyone is, I think this might be best described as the elevator pitch. So if you had just, 30 seconds to a minute to talk to somebody about, what it's like to become a neutral, say somebody jumps in the elevator and says, quick, what's your one tip on how to become a neutral? What would you say that one thing to keep in mind is?
I would say, don't be discouraged. It might be slow at first, but it's going to build over time. I think that's one of the things somebody told me when I first started out, and it does. You just, people get to know that you do this work. You build on your experience, that type of thing. So just keep your ears open, talk to people, listen for opportunities, and it'll come.
One thing I would say is what Selena alluded to earlier is you have to be deliberate about it. You have to make a plan, maybe 3-year plan, 5-year plan, whatever. You have to divide it up and say, well, how am I going to work towards that plan? And, just work on it. And there is really no substitute for that. You just have to make a plan and work on it.
I think if you're a good process mediator, you can do any kind of case. And that's been, and you're going to probably have to do some kinds of areas that you haven't done before, and not to be scared of that. If you're a good facilitative mediator, I do PI cases for Home Depot in Chicago. I don't know I never was a PI lawyer. I don't know anything about Chicago law, but I'm a good process mediator. So don't be scared once you're a good process mediator to try different areas that you didn't practice in or weren't interested in.
I want to add, I spoke to Selena yesterday in preparation, and she said that yesterday, and it inspired me to remember that, because that's a very basic fact that people with mediating well forget about. It is about the process. But that one elevator tip, be nice, tell people what you do, and there are professional consultants that you can contact out there to help you build your mediation practice. Those people do exist, and if anybody wants to know of a good one, send me an email, I'll let you know. I've been with two, and I found one to be very helpful. And it's like building any other business, though. It takes time. But this is not to sound too excited, but COVID has presented so many more opportunities for mediators and arbitrators. My business increased by 50% this year, at least. And most of that is COVID related, not people with COVID issues, but because the courts have been closed. So people are utilizing mediators more and more, and Zoom mediations, in my opinion, have changed mediation, how we're going to see it from now until the end of time. We're going to have more mediations and more people on Zoom. I don't think we're ever going to go back to the way we used to do them. And there's a lot of opportunity in this industry if you work at it.
So those are all the formal questions I had. I think now might be a good time. We have a couple of questions from the audience, but if anyone else has a question they'd like to pose to the panel, please chat those just so we can keep up with them. But the first question we received previously is, could you address court versus private mediation paths?
Well, court paths would be like if a court has a what they call court annex mediation program. So like in the Western District of PA, they have an ADR program. So and there's, as Selena mentioned earlier, there are requirements. You have to, for being a mediator, an arbitrator, or an early neutral evaluator. So you have to check the court website to see what that is. You meet those requirements, you usually send in your application, and if they feel you've met the qualifications and they select you on the panel. And then it's up to people to hire you and use you. That's the Western District's model. I'm not sure what other courts do. Sometimes I've already talked about compulsory arbitration, but sometimes courts will have settlement week, and like I did in West Virginia, and then you're assigned a case. So that's how that works. And then private mediation, you could be either contacted by individuals who ask you to mediate their case, or you could be contacted by a mediation provider, and they'll put you on their panel. And again, there's usually requirements for that. So that's sort of my take on that that question. And maybe other panelists want to weigh in.
There is private cases, most of them are done privately. We don't have state mandatory mediation in Pennsylvania. So there's a lot of private things going on. Workplace mediations are private. If you get hired by a company who are having two employees that don't get along, that's a private mediation. So there's lots of private mediation opportunities out there. And maybe too, I was telling you might have some place that you are where you could advertise your services. And that could be, we have a mediator on council who does a lot of faith-based mediation. So, think of, maybe you have a niche that you could work in and for private mediation. So there's lots of opportunities besides just the court.
Sunu or Judge Giordano, anything you'd like to add?
No, nothing.
I'm reading the questions. I don't have anything to add to what Selena or Mary said, but I see Judge Turgeon had a question here. What was the Zoom mediation training mentioned in Maryland? I'm not sure who spoke about that.
That was me. Yeah, the Maryland has an Office of Conflict Resolution, and it's called MACRO, M-A-C-R-O. It's Maryland Conflict Resolution Office. They're considered sort of like among the mediators, like best practice, because one of their Supreme Court justices actually founded this office, and they're very pro-mediation, but they do a lot of setting up, helping set up programs, and they do a lot of training. But so I was looking for some Zoom training on online dispute resolution, and I had a couple of people, actually somebody had recommended it to me, and there are, I think I did 2 of their Zoom trainings, which I thought were very good. But if you go there and look like, I think you look at video training, I think you'll find it. And if you can't find it, just send me an email and I'll try to find it for you.
The ABA dispute resolution section also had a lot of programs on Zoom mediation, probably around 3 months back. And I believe most of those programs are recorded and are available on the section's website.
There's also a question here about AAA arbitrations and how long it take you to get your first assignment. I went to the school in Chicago. I stayed on the panel for almost a year before I got my first assignment. And I've only had one in almost 2 years now on AAA. So, Mr. Feldman, if you're wondering, I'm not sure how that whole process works. I'm certain that there are lawyers in certain industries that prefer certain arbitrators. I'm not sure if that answers your question or not.
I heard the average time is 18 months.
18?
18
Okay.
months. So, you're better than that. So you're good.
All right.
Wow. Actually, I got contacted by AAA to serve on a sort of a specialty panel. And it took like years before I think at least 3 years before they really got it set up and going. But once they did, I got cases from them. But there's really no, it's like whenever they get one and people pick you, I guess, is when you get it. And they come in fits. And, one time I think I got 3 on one day and, then you go for a year or so without one. And that's been my experience with another provider. It's like you sort of have to wait to be picked, by the parties. And sometimes, you'll get a couple on one day. And then other times it'll be like 3 or 4 months before you get another case. So it's just really, it's something you've got to be developing that, it's a constant marketing type of thing. That's why you do other things. You just can't rely on the providers.
So we're running up on the end of our time, but we have one more question, and if anyone has a quick answer to this. So someone asked, what is the frequency of private mediation to resolving disputes versus as a prelude to future litigation? If anyone has a quick thought on that, and then we'll close out.
Adam, I didn't
I'm
hear
sorry.
that.
Oh, sorry. I think my internet connection is a little slow. So someone asked, what is the frequency of private mediations actually resolving disputes as opposed to them being kind of a prelude to litigation?
I can only speak about, most of mine are private. I would say 95% of the cases I do are private. They're not through the court. And I would say I have about a 95% success rate. And I think nationwide, that is kind of the success rate is around 90%. If people sit down at the table, it's so high. Mediation is just very effective. So it's still very high.
And I would say the success in a mediation may not be that the case settles at mediation, but it starts a process where the parties start talking. And it's been my experience as counsel that in some of the mediations that we go to, the case doesn't settle, but a couple of months later, it settles because of the process that started at the mediation. So just the fact of sitting down with the opposing side, being able to hear what the other side's position, especially in construction where I practice, you have the project level people who have those emotions, they're tied to those issues, but the senior management comes in, they hear the other side, they're able to weigh the position much better. So it always makes a movement in my experience.
I think it depends on not just on the meet. I've never really actually kept statistics on mine, but I think it really helps when the attorneys have an understanding of the process and what should be accomplished. If somebody comes in and they come in blaring all the guns, then that's going to probably send the other side into the corner, and chances are it may not settle. But if people, if the advocates take time to learn about the process, learn about best practices, I think it enhances your chances of settlement. Also, I found in the community mediations that when the people who come to those mediations are prepped by the community mediation center as to what to expect, then those are very successful. So. And I agree with what Sunu said, that sometimes they don't settle. But I mean, I remember a case I did where once I was just trying to push the other one, and when it didn't settle, then it settled the next day. They just wanted to see how far they could push the other side. And he gleefully, the attorney gleefully told me that afterwards. So it just really just depends.
I was very depressed a couple of weeks ago after I didn't settle a case, because I thought I was such a great mediator and things were settling left and right. And I walked down the hallway and there's a gentleman there, Judge Wallach, who's been doing this 15 years full time. And I told him what happened. He said, well, you're a good mediator and you settle cases. And when you don't, you say lawyers settle cases, mediators don't. So it's all your perspective. I think it's somewhere around 75 to 85% of cases settle once this process starts. Oftentimes I carry my mediations on a week later. I'm texting people. Actually, I was just doing it now on a case that I had last week. It didn't settle, but it'll probably settle in the next couple of days. Just stay on that case and just keep working people and try to get it to resolve.
Well, we have run over our time, so I just want to thank our panelists for taking the time to talk to everyone today about their career paths and how they became neutrals, and advice for people who are getting their start as neutrals. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. And thank you for our listeners. We had some really good questions. And I look forward to doing more programs like this in the future. It was really helpful, and I think I got a lot out of it. I hope everyone else did too. So thank you all.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Adam, thank you for moderating, and thank you for Susan Wolf at the PBA for managing our Zoom meeting. Hope everybody enjoyed the conversation. If you have any ideas for future Lunch and Learns, please feel free to contact me. I'd love to hear your suggestions. I can be reached at mkcoleman@rhwrlaw.com. Thank you again to everybody.
It's really nice working with all of you. And hopefully we'll see each other again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.